Nachamu. We talk about Nachamu when we do the section of the study of Torah in the morning. So in a few minutes, we'll say a few words about. I'm grateful for Gary and Mark helping those that are connecting remotely with us. We're here to be in this space in this morning of Shabbos. We'll open our Sirim on page 186. And we say, how great is your trust? And we think of what is about us, which is which makes us trustworthy, which is worthy of having God's trust on us. שחסרת בי נשמתי בחמלה רבה אמונתך שחסרת בי נשמתי בחמלה רבה אמונתך. First, thanks to you, ever living sovereign, that you have restored my soul to me in mercy. How great is your trust. As we enter this sanctuary, we turn our Sidurim to page 192, as we recognize this space that holds all of us together and that we, all of us together, create. After recognizing our communal space, we take a moment to acknowledge our personal space, our own bodies. We invite you to turn your Sidurim to page 194 for the blessing, for the well-functioning of our bodies, and to daven, to pray it quietly, and also to try to find some loving attention for maybe a part of your body that needs that kind of attention in this morning. ברוך אתה אדוני רופא כל בשר ומפליא לעשות. And in the intersection between our bodies and our souls, there is our breath. The word for soul in Hebrew is neshama, and for breath is neshima. And it is quite symbolic that we believe, we feel that sometimes all what we need in order to access our souls is to breathe. So trying to be intentional about breathing, about to focus on your breath for a moment. Take a deep breath. So we turn our Siddurim to page 196 for the blessing for our souls. אלוהי נשמה שנתת בי טהורי. אלוהי נשמה שנתת בי טהורי. אלוהי נשמה שנתת בי source of all creation, sovereign of all souls, praise are you, Adonai, in whose hand is every living soul and the breath of humankind. Baruch atah Adonai, asher beyado nefesh kol chai, beruach kol basar ish. We will now turn our Siddurim to page 198 for Birkot HaShachar. We like to call them in English blessings for the daily miracles. And the idea behind that is that there are so many things in our routines that we take for granted. So many things that are part of our daily lives and we don't really stop to acknowledge them. And I want to do like a quick comment on these blessings. You have heard me saying that they go from the very basic things that we do to more universal things, and then to the very particular idea of being Jews. So in that context, I want you to think of first of your body, like Zokef Kefufim, Amachim Mitzadei Gaber. It's about the ability to move. It's about the ability to open our eyes and distinguish between day and night. Later on, we think of different blessings, as, for example, the blessing, and some might think the curse of having free will and being responsible for our choices and actions. So, thinking about many of the comments and the things that we discussed during this time, I saw this morning someone wearing a shirt and was written pro-choice, right? Which is a political statement today, an important one, in a very important conversation. And I think that it links back to that blessing, to the blessing of having free will and autodetermination. Thinking of the many blessings we have, and those that we need to be very careful about protecting in our days. We turn our Siddurim to page 198. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has given the mind the ability to distinguish them from night.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who opens the eyes of the blind.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who frees the captive.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who lifts up the fallen.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who stretches the earth over the waters.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who strengthens our stand.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who clothes the naked.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who gives strength to the weary.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who removes sleep from the eyes, slumber from the eyelids.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who made me in the image of God.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has given me free will.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has made me a Jew.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who gives Israel with strength.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who crowns Israel with splendor.
Amen. We turn our Sidurim to page 204 to the blessing for the study of Torah. A reminder that we are supposed to engage in the source, in the core of our values, in a daily basis. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher קידשנו במצוותיו, וציוונו לעסוק בדברי תורה. Oh Adonai, our God, let the words of Torah be sweet in our mouths and the mouths of your people Israel, so that we, our descendants, and the descendants of all your people Israel may know you by studying your Torah for its own sake. Blessed are you, Adonai, who teaches Torah to your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, המלמד תורה לעמו ישראל. So Diane, I promised to you a quick Torah study in Nachamu. So I shared a quick idea about Nachamu as a Torah study this morning, and then we'll talk about Torah, the Torah portion later on. The word Nachamu that we read immediately after Tisha B'Av. So Tisha B'Av, we remember the destruction of the temple, the first temple, the second temple, and we remember many other tragedies that happened to the Jewish people. The Inquisition apparently as an enterprise was declared around Tisha B'Av, 1492, around Tisha B'Av. Some of the most terrible laws that were established by the Nazi regime were around Tisha B'Av. The Jewish center in Buenos Aires in 94 that was bombed and 85 people died there, Tisha B'Av. So many tragedies happened to Jewish people during this time. And we remember all of them in one day. There's one day that is the saddest day of the year. We don't have a sad year. We have one day that is the saddest day of the year. And in the Shabbat, immediately after that day, we say, Nachamu. What's the meaning of the word Nachamu?
Comfort.
Comfort. Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami. My people, you should find comfort. Now, the word that we use for the saddest days is mourning. We are abelim, we mourn. After we say Nachamu, we switch into something else. What's the only word that we don't really say in funerals? There's a word that is kind of crucial that we use many times in the Jewish year and calendar, and we not actually say the word in funerals.
We don't say that word in funerals?
Almost not. Well, somehow we don't say it in funerals. That's fair. There are other words, okay? We give you that. we don't always say the word iskor.
Oh, yeah, remember. We say it in English. We don't say it in Hebrew often. Yiskor.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a reason for that. Who says simcha? Own it. Because the mitzvah of remembering is very often linked with joy, with the privilege of remembering. Now, that's a challenging reading. When you are remembering Yom Kippur, when you are remembering Simchat Torah, well, Simchat Torah, no, Shmini Atzeret, or etc., in Shavuot, in Pesach, all these moments for memory in which we say iskor are about the joy, the privilege of remembering, which you cannot do when you are mourning. That's why there's this tradition of not saying iskor during the first year of mourning, because you're not there. You cannot distinguish yet. Now, this idea of nachamu, this idea of saying nachamu ami nachamu, is for us to be able to shift from being mourners for the Mikdash and the tragedies that happened to us into finding the sweetness of memory and building ourselves toward the ability to rectify and find a new path. You can't find a new path in life if you're not filled with hope and with some level of joy for the endeavor that you are about to take. So the word nachamu in this context is reminding us that we cannot stay mourners forever. That yes, when we lose a beloved person, when we lose something that is beloved to us, we carry a little bit of that pain, or sometimes a lot of that pain, with us forever. But we cannot allow ourselves to have that status forever. And that's what the word nachamu can to remind us. We'll now continue our service on page 212 for the blessing for the songs of praise, the psukei de Simbra, in which we try to do the work of uplifting our souls, of finding joy. Baruch Shamar, Olam, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo, Baruch Hoseh, Bereshit, Baruch Omer, Ve'oseh, Baruch Goser, Umekayem, Baruch Merachem, Al Haaretz, Baruch Merachem, Al Habriot, Baruch Meshalem, Sachatov Lereach, Baruch Hailad, Bekayam Lanetzach, Baruch Poder, Umatzil, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo, praise, we extol you and proclaim your sovereignty, for you are the source of life in the universe. One God, life of the universe, praise and glorious ruler. Your name is eternal. Melech meulal, batishbachot. Melech meulal, batishbachot. Baruch atah Adonai, melech meulal, batishbachot. Page 214, Miss Shir, the Yom HaShabbat canto. We'll do the one that Cantor likes.
What did you do last night?
The one the last night, or we can do the one you like. You okay? We're gonna do the one we like. Mizmor Shir.
I can't really catch it in my
Shir
brain.
leyom HaShabbat. Mizmor Shir. Shir 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 leyom HaShabbat. Page 215. Happy are those who dwell in your house. Try with me. Yambara lay 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 yambara lay 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 yara lay lay ya lay 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 אשרי העם שככה לו אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו אשרי העם שככה לו אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו אלי אשרי יושבי ביתך עוד יהללוך אלה אשרי יושבי ביתך עוד יהללוך אלה אשרי העם שככה לו אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו אשרי העם שככה לו אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו Yambara lay 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 yara lay 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 yara lay 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 hey yambara lay 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 yara lay 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 אשרי העם שככה לו אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו אשרי העם שככה לו אשרי העם שאדוני invite you to read pages 215, 216 quietly, the words of Ashrei, or alternatively to take a moment for personal meditation and to think about what's a joyful place for you. What's your space of joy? And in this Shabbat, or Shabbat Nachamu, your space of comfort. תהילת אדוני ידבר פי, ויברך כל בשר שם קודשו לעולם ועד. May we find the word to align, the way to align our words, our bodies, and our hearts in songs of praise, in words of blessing. ואנחנו נברך יה, מעתה ועד עולם. Hallelujah. Page 218, Psalm 150. כל הנשמה תהלל יה, הללו, הללויה. כל הנשמה תהלל יה, הללו, נשמה, והללויה, הללויה, 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 hallelujah, hallelujah. Master of all generations, who is praised in a multitude of praises, who guides the world with abundant loving kindness, and all creatures with mercy. Adonai neither slumbers nor sleeps. God awakens the sleeping, arouses those who slumber, gives speech to the mute. And God loosens the bonds of captives. God supports the fallen and strengthens those who are bent over. You alone do we acknowledge. Page 220 is one of the most beautiful poems in prayer, in my opinion, that we not always sing. And in order to revert that situation, we would like to teach you a wonderful melody for these words. It's quite easy and repetitive. So we'll try it in 2 sections and then we'll sing it once through, and I'm quite confident that if we sing it a few times, we'll totally get it. And the words are so beautiful. This idea that sometimes we cannot express the depths of our gratitude with our own words. That we feel things that we can't find the words to articulate them. And so we allow our prayers, those words that were written by someone else, but have carried the emotions of generations past, to carry the depths of our emotions today. And those, in that context, are the words of Ilufino, this special section of Nishmat Kol Chai. Ilufino, Valeshira Kayam, Ulshonenu Rina, Keamon Galav, Besiftoteinu Shevach, Kemerchavei Rakia, Einenu Meirot, Kashemesh, Bekayareach. Let's try it again. Ilufinu, Maleshira Kayam, Ulshonenu Rina, Kamon Galav, Vesiftoteinu Shevach, Kemerchavei Rakia, Einenu Meirot, Kashemesh, Bekayareach. And our hands are spread out. וידינו פלוסות כנשרי שמיים, ברגלינו קלות כהיילות. אין אנחנו מספיקים להודות לך, אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו. אנחנו מספיקים להודות לך, אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אמותינו. I think we're ready to try it. And if you feel that you're a bit challenged, that's okay. That's okay. To be challenged in prayer from time to time is the right feeling. If you feel too comfortable when you are praying, it's never good. It means the prayer is not working. Prayer is something that is supposed to move us and make us think about how we read this text. That's why we make some variations with melodies to give different interpretations. And also, when we work a little bit, it's not that bad. Ilufinu aleshira kayam ulshonenu rina ke'amongala ושפתותינו שבח כמרחבי רקיע בעינינו מאירות השמש וכירח בידינו פרוסות כנשלי שמיים ברגלינו קלות חיילות פשט 220 אין אנחנו מספיקים להודות לך, אדוני אלוהינו, אלוהי אבותינו. אין אנחנו מספיקים להודות לך, אדוני אלוהינו, אלוהי Oh God, in the power of your strength, creating glory, in the glory of your name, mighty forever, awesome in amazing deeds, the ruler who sits on a high and exalted throne. We are on page 222. For the words and the blessing that conclude this section of our service. שוכן עד מרום וקדוש שמו, בכתוב לנו צדיקים באדוני, לישרים נבע תהילה, בפני ישרים תתהלל, ובדברי צדיקים תתברך, ובלשון חסידים תתרומם, ובקרב קדושים תתקדש, ובמקלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל, רינה יתפאר שמך מלכנו, בכל דור ודור. Baruch atah Adonai, in the bottom of page 223. El melech gadol בתשבחות, אל ההודעות אדון הנפלאות, הבוחר בשירי שמרה, מלך ערכי העולמים. Page 224.
יתקדם ויתקדש שמי רבה ועמד יברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי תכל בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. שמרה ומבורך לעולם ולעולם והמיה יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשה בריחו נעלה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה לאמירן ועלמה אמרו
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, יוצר אור ובורא חושך, עושה שלום ובורא את הכל. המאיר לארץ ולדרים, עליה ברחמים. In goodness, you daily renew creation. How numerous are your works, Adonai. In wisdom, you form them all, filling the earth with your creatures. We praise Adonai, our God, for the excellent work of your hands and for the lights you created. May they glorify you. Shine a new light upon Zion, that we all may swiftly merit its radiance. Praise are you, Adonai, creator of all heavenly lights. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMeorot. תודה רבה, אהבתנו, אדוני אלוהינו. How deeply you have loved us, Adonai, our God, gracing us with surpassing compassion. והרננו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך. Enlighten our eyes with your Torah. Focus our minds on your mitzvot. Unite our hearts in love and reverence for your name. Let us in peace from the four corners of the earth. And if you are wearing a talit, we invite you, if you're comfortable doing so, to bring the four corners of your talit together as a symbol of the unity that we seek in the world and in our beings. You work wonders. You chose us to truly draw us near to your great name, that we might acknowledge you, declaring you one in love. Praise be you, Adonai, who chooses your people Israel in love. Baruch atah Adonai, abocher be'amo Israel be'ava. We're on page 232 for the Shema.
Shema
Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Page 234. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובמלאכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וכשאתם להות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. Middle of page 236.
Adonai said to Moses as follows: Speak to the Israelite people and instruct them to make for themselves fringes on the corners of their garments throughout the ages. Let them attach a cord of blue to the fringe at each corner. That shall be your fringe. Look at it and recall all the commandments of Adonai and observe them, so that you do not follow your heart and eyes in your lustful urge.
למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת,
אדוני אלוהיכם
אמת.
אמת ביציב באהוב, בחביב בנורא בדיר בטוב ביפה דבר עשה עלינו לעולם בהד. We continue with the silent reading over page 238. joy, Moshe, Miriam, and Israel responded with song to you, all of them proclaiming, who is like you, O God? Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai. We're on page 240. Yalai, lai, 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 yala, lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, 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 yala, la, lai, lai. Yai, lai, 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 yala, la, la, lai, lai. Yai, lai, 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 la, 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 lai. Yai, la, lai, 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 lai. Yalai, lai, lai, yala, lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, 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 lai. Yalai, lai, lai, yalai, lai, lai. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nehedar b'kodesh. Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nehedar b'kodesh. Nora te'imot, osef pelech. Nora te'imot, osef pelech. Shira chadasha, shiribu geulim, לשמחה על שפת הים. שירה חדשה, shiribu geulim, לשמחה על שפת הים. יחד כולם, הודו והמליכו ויאמרו, אדוני הינו לעולם ועד. We'll now turn our Siurim to page 242. For Tfilat Amiram, we'll chant together the first three blessings of Tfilat Amiram. Then we will continue in silence. We invite you to follow along the words of our tradition, the Mosaic or words of our tradition. At the same time, to find the Tfilah Shevalev, the prayer of your heart. Tfilat Amiram is a great opportunity to find focus and center. Find the way to say the words. And you really need to say. There's so many words to say. So,
Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu, ve'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Reuben, Elohei Leah, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל העליון, גומל חסדים
חיים בחסד, מחיה מתים ברחמים רבים, צומח נופלים ברופא חולים, ומעתיד אסורים, ובקיים אמונתו לישני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצליח ישועה ונאמנתו. מתים. אלוהי ציון לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. ישמחו בקודשך שומרי שבת וקודשי עונג מקדשי ויהי, מסדר בית הנגד את החברים. ולרצון אמרי פי והגיון ליבי לפניך אדוני, צורי וגואלי. May the words of my heart and the meditations of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you. אדוני my rock and my redeemer, עשה שלום במרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. I like to seal Tfilat Amidah, to conclude this personal prayer. Not always, but often when we start preparing for the high holidays with the words Betaer Liveinu. I don't know if you're familiar with the words. Betaer Liveinu means purify our hearts, which is the kind of work that we try to do as we prepare for the high holidays. We start counting that time between Tu B'Av and Rosh Hashanah. And we start, it's like the Passover cleaning out of our hearts, right? We start to get nervous and we try to recognize spaces, judgments, rancors, frustrations, misdeeds, wrongdoings, and also wonderful deeds and things that we were right and we need to reinforce and reaffirm. The words of Betaer Liveinu, and the melody is very famous, so I think you all know it. It's in the Amidah.
You could also find the hymn on page 650.
It's the Amidah, no?
Yes, but on 650 also.
650. No, but I want you to go, actually, want to be intentional to say, no,
Okay.
this is the Amidah, because I want you to be looking for this as you pray the Amidah during the time of the high holidays. So you will find it on page, I tell you in a second, 252. In the middle. Betaer Liveinu le'ovdecha be'emet. And we'll talk about the word emet later on. It's just one sentence. Betaer Liveinu, purify our hearts to do the work, your work of truth. Betaer Liveinu le'ovdecha, 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 le'ovdecha be'emet. Betaer Liveinu le'ovdecha, 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 le'ovdecha be'emet. The compa goes, the same words, just goes higher. Betaer Liveinu le'ovdecha, 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 le'ovdecha be'emet. Betaer Liveinu le'ovdecha, 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 le'ovdecha be'emet. Just one sentence in the middle of page 252. Betaer Liveinu le'ovdecha be'emet. Betaer Liveinu le'ovdecha, 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 le'ovdecha be'emet. Purify our hearts to do your work, the work of connecting with you in truth, with the best intentions, and help us find a path to you. We'll now turn our Sidurim to page 362 in order to commence the Torah service.
Ein kamocha v'Elohim Adonai, ein kemachtecha, malechutecha, malechut kol olamim.
only one. Okay. That's the thing about, you're in some state and you believe that everyone else is there. I even look around the room. I thought that, do you have what you do?
I do.
Right. Well, what can we do? So, Shabbos. This is such an intense Torah portion. I will be standing because I feel it will be easier for me to see you and to guide you through the Torah study. Can you do me a favor?
Sure.
Can you find like the page for me also of the Deuteronomy 4:4? Okay, just Canto, and then she'll tell us. So this is a very interesting Torah portion. And one of 1,000.
100.
So I wait for you 1 second until you get there. Now,
About 100. For those of you online, it's Deuteronomy 4:4, I believe.
yes, you can find it in Sepharia also, or Chabad, or wherever you take your Torah from. So Chabad has a really good website. Before Sepharia was out there, they were certainly the best. Are you there? Good. So now, leave it for a second. And this Torah portion, Parashat Ve'et Hanan. First, what's the meaning of the word Ve'et Hanan, Litchanen? Pleaded. It's like begging, right? And who is pleading? Moses, asking for what? He wanted to go into the promised land. Now, there's often a misunderstanding, in my opinion, regarding the nature of the conversation that God and Moses have at the beginning of the Torah portion. Why? Because the bottom line of the conversation is that God says, and don't ask me about this again. It's like an angry dad or mom saying, enough. Now, does Moses get what he wanted? He does, actually. He gets to see the promised land. He wasn't even supposed to see the promised land. And there's some flexibility there. Now, what does it mean about prayer? Sometimes we feel that we are just tired of saying the same, of asking for the same, but we feel very strongly about it. We really want to believe that that should be possible. And I think that the first statement that the Torah portion makes is that there is meaning to keep asking, to keep praying for things that we want to see in our world, not to get tired. Now, we might not get our way 100%. Moshe didn't. But he got to see the land. Don't give up and keep praying for it. So that's the first message. So it's not a prayer that goes to waste, as is often interpreted. It's actually one that works. Not 100%, but to certain percentage. Now let's go to the fourth verse. And friends, I'm not a fan of using my phone for Torah study. I'm not checking my text messages right now. If you are wondering why I have my phone here, and I need to change the plastic I have, I don't know, my screensaver there. It's not looking great, my phone. But to be fully honest, I'm not really good at changing this plastic. So I count on my wife to do that, and she seems to be busy. So I have been refraining from asking her. I am praying quietly. Was a good catch. So the fourth verse of the fourth chapter of the book of Deuteronomy has a wonderful, wonderful sentence that is foundational for a very specific movement. I will read this for you in Hebrew. Atem adbekim b'Adonai Elohechem chaim kulchem hayom. While you who held fast to your God, Adonai, Yud-Heh Vav-Heh, are all alive today. Okay, so what? So what's the interesting thing about this verse? One word. No, we are not there yet. The word bekut is the bekim. The translation the translation I use is held fast. What do you have? Held fast. It's a bad translation. It's just a bad translation because the word the bekim means to cleave or to stick to paste. Now, which movement came up with that word as being the central word for their ideology? There's a movement that used the word, I will pronounce it in Ashkenazi, bekuth. Have you heard that? The central idea of the Hasidic movement is the bekut, cleaving to God. And it comes, and it's repeated several times in the book of Deuteronomy. What's this idea of cleaving? Held fast works to some extent, but the word bekut, to paste something in Hebrew, is le'adbik. What does it mean to stick with God? To paste ourselves to God? Well, it's an interesting word. Why you say follow, Ruben? Why you use the word follow? So I want to so walk, like follow and walk in its ways is a Talmudic idea. And you are a Talmud student, so you probably are linking your idea with that. And if you are not, I'm linking it to that. Now, it's a Talmudic idea. What does it mean to walk in God's ways? So if the Talmud says, if God dressed the naked, so we dress the naked, and it goes on. Now the bekut actually is to find God everywhere. It's slightly different. It's not about following an idea of God. It's about recognizing God everywhere, recognizing a portion of eternity, of transcendence in every single thing we encounter in our lives. And says beautifully, Degel Machane Ephraim is a Hasidic interpretation to Torah and to other things, and is the grandchild of the Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov, we know the grandchild of the Baal Shem Tov, Degel Machane Ephraim, very, very important Hasidic book. They say, Batent Bekim Adonai Elohechem Kulchem Hayom, and I wrote to myself raw translation, which basically means I helped myself with Google Translate to have the English translation. And well, and you have a deer, you have pasted yourself to your God today, and then he goes, and I will just make a free translation right now. And then he says, and the word atem at the beginning, you, those that cleave, that he says, it's not atem, it's emet. The same letters of the word truth. He says, there's one truth in the world, and it's that God is everywhere. Now, if you go to 429. Thank you, Cantor. 429. This is one of my favorite statements in the entire Torah. 1,001. 1192. This is one of my favorite sentences in the entire Torah, to the point that there's a word here, the word sham, there. So I don't know if you know, but I have a blog. My blog is called Po, here. The sham is from here, this sham. This there is the one that I like so much. Why? Because Torah is speaking about we being in some kind of exile, we being lost, we not being able to find ourselves. Now let's contextualize this. In Shabbat Nachamu, we are reading immediately after Tisha B'Av. Where are we in Tisha B'Av in the Jewish calendar? We're in the exile. We are physically lost. Now, this is Torah. This is somewhere else. We don't know when Deuteronomy was written, but it's a very common thing to connect between these Torah portions and what's happening years later to the Jewish people, because as a matter of fact, Moses is prophesying that we will be in the exile, that we will be lost. Now, where do we recognize ourselves when we think about the work that we need to do toward the high holidays, toward Rosh Hashanah? What's the name of the work that we do toward Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur? Teshuvah. What's the literal translation of Teshuvah? Return. It's return. Return from where? From a spiritual exile. And when you think about returning from a spiritual exile, we say, "Ubikashtem misham et Adonai Elohecha umatzata ki tirdeshu lo bechol levavcha bechol nafshecha." But if you search, if you ask, bikashtem is to require, to ask. If you ask from there is from wherever you are. When you recognize yourself as being lost and you ask from there with an honest heart and trying to be true to your soul, you'll find it. So the statement is that you don't need to find it in order to ask, as we sometimes think, well, I need to get, I need to organize my life before I start thinking about this or doing that. Have you heard that? So Torah is saying it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. That's not the real sequence in life. The sequence that the Torah is suggesting is wherever you are, if you're in sadness, if you're feeling disconnected, from that place, you are supposed to ask. In that place, more than that, going to the previous verse that we were reading, in that place of pain, frustration, disconnection, in that place there is God. Because God is everywhere. Now, I want you to jump into something else. So this is the Torah portion in which we read the Shema. So go to chapter 6, verses 4 to 12. And you know it. ואהבת את שמע ישראל, etc., etc. Yes. 1201. Okay. Now, the Shema. Quick question. Now, ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך בכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, etc., etc., etc. Now, what the Sfat Emet, another Hasidic rabbi, asks is, what does it mean that you shall love Adonai your God, your God, and we talk about the word Adonai, which is the personification of the divine presence, not always accurate, and a very male, king-like personification of the divine presence, like the Lord. We don't really have the Lord written in the Torah, but that's for a different conversation. Well, you have a microphone. If you want, you can just bring it in.
We have a lot of this, by the way.
Well, we cannot. There are lots of things in this Torah portion. So the Sfat Emet asks, what's the meaning of with all your heart? Now, what's the meaning of the word heart in the Torah? The important one. What? So I'll upset you quickly, and then we'll get past this. Correct. So and you know, sometimes it's right and wrong, but most of the time when the Torah, like 100% of the time. So when the Torah is saying the word heart, it's talking about mind, it's talking about intellect. Now it makes it a bit less attractive, right? Because when you think about it, they say, well, it was the heart, it was here, and now it's here. Now, why do we feel that way? Because we like to think that our hearts are pure, and we know that we think about all kind of wrong things, don't you? We do. We do. We get annoyed. We sometimes hope not, but like we curse in silence, or sometimes out loud. We have a variety of thoughts that when we really think about them, we might not be proud of them, right? But here's what the Sfat Emet says. He says, you shall remember there is God there too. Going back to the beginning. Also, in the thoughts that you are not proud of, there is God. And then, when you read and you say, you shall love your God, your God, with all your heart, it means with all the messy thoughts that you have, because there is God there too. So even when you are struggling, when you find yourself 1 second in like the worst place, you're supposed to love your way through. Even when you're not proud of what you are feeling and what you are thinking in that moment. You cannot deny a part of your existence. Yes? So get beyond, so Gary is saying, I'm just repeating this for our Zoomers that might not be able to hear you. Gary is saying that it might have to be with the context of rationalism and saying get beyond conventional understanding of God, and because otherwise you cannot grasp it. I'm adding the word grasp. And Ruben, you're about to say something. I see you. Okay. Any other ideas? Yes. And remind me your name. We met. Sarah. Nice to see you again. No, but I can tell you what the 32 means. Yes. So 22, but this is for a very, yes, I know. So it's for a very different conversation that we're not going to have now. Okay? But it has to do with the topic. That's why I'm going to tell you, but we're not going to open the conversation. So 22 letters to the Hebrew alphabet and 10 sfirot that were used for the creation of the world. That's Lamed Bet Klivot Chochmah, the 32 paths of wisdom. That's what you see that in their heart. Yeah. So yeah, for a very interesting conversation, very important. We could have that conversation if we had 1 more hour, Sarah. But I don't know what you're gonna do for lunch. But it's a gala tonight in this congregation. But thank you for bringing that up. Happy to have that conversation at some point. I'm very passionate about that. So let's get back to the other one. Now, thinking about this idea of loving our way through, it's actually tough. Because it's really difficult when you are feeling not necessarily the feelings that you are most proud of to say there should be God in this situation. On the other hand, if you want to be in a better situation, how do you transition if you don't have a foundation that will help you make that motion? If you are nowhere, you need a there. You need a sham in order to create a different here. Because that sham, that there is your here. And you cannot deny your existence. Now there is a Muppet conversation. I want to be here, I want to be there, and they go back and forth. Have you watched that? Oh, no. I don't know. I remember this portion because it's so brilliant. Because immediately when you are here from other one's perspective, you might be there. And then like it shifts all the time.
Pretty sure it's forever.
Okay. So, and you go back and forth like here and there. I want to be here. Oh, no. Okay, now I'm here. No, you're there. And then they go back and forth. But in our lives, if we don't have the ability to say, there's a here, and I might not be happy with this here. I want for the here to be a sham, to be a there. I want to move somewhere else. We need to find God there. And that's the last thing. And I will make a little shortcut to this last thing, but yes. Remind me to talk later on about the importance of remembering. So the section of Be'afta seals the 10th verse. I don't have pages anymore. So Cantor, you are our pager helper today. So I tell you which verse I want. The verse 12 of Deuteronomy, of 4:12. No, or 6:12. So 6:12. 12:02. Okay. Sorry, friends. Take heed that you do not forget. Now, what does it mean not to forget? Remember what? So you're supposed to create something to protect. To protect what? I would say to protect, in general terms, your integrity. Now, your connection to morality, your connection to the world, your connection not only to those that surround you, but fundamentally to yourself. So, and what's that thing? What are you supposed to tell to your children? Is there a few verses before? Yes, what? Torah. So the way back is when you don't know how to center yourself, and the idea is that you don't know, that we don't know. The only way to be mindful all the time of our values and our aspiration as human beings is to connect constantly with those core values. How do you do that? By being engaged in the study of Torah. Mark, you said this morning, I learned something yesterday. And then we said, well, you're supposed to learn something every day, right? Maybe they were talking to each other. Sorry, I'm starting to be confusional here and there. But hey, to guard Shabbat, that comes earlier in this Torah portion with the 10 Commandments. You are absolutely right, Sarah. But this idea of creating structures to protect core values. And the structure to protect core values is Torah u'mitzvot. It's the study of Torah and fulfilling mitzvot. And when you don't know what's the right way to act, when you are in a sham, in a der, that is very confusional to you. So how do you know how to act? When if you don't know, mitzvot. And okay, I will add one more component to this. And I will repeat this in a different time. There's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avot that says there's one rabbi who's walking and all of a sudden notices a tree. And he says, it's a Pirkei Avot, chapter 3, Mishnah 7. He notices a tree and says, Ma yafe ilan se. How wonderful is this tree? And the rabbis say, Ke'ilu u'mitchayev benafsho. He's almost accountable for death. They say, wait a minute, like, don't we like trees? Don't we think that you are supposed to be connected with the outside world and loving trees? Like, what's the big deal? The poor rabbi was walking, thinking of Torah. And all of a sudden he realized that there is a tree and he's appreciating that and stopped the Torah. What's the problem with that? Yafe. Almost that. What? Well, it's everywhere, right? So it doesn't mean that there's no God in the tree. But what's the problem with leaving your Torah? With leaving something that you are not supposed to forget for even a minute? So the question is, what's the meaning of carrying something that you're not supposed to forget for even a minute? And what's your name? Remind me. Beth. And Beth talking about noticing something new. Now, noticing new things is also a mitzvah. So what's the problem here with the leaving the Torah, Ruth? You should. So you say it's the words. It's actually the words. The approach was wrong. Is that what I'm understanding you? Wonderful. There is a blessing for that. There's more than one blessing for that. There are two different blessings for that. So what's the deal with this tree? If you have your Sidurim next to you, one more second of free form, friends. There's an important Torah on this, in my opinion. So we were talking about the Shema. So how does the Shema seal on page 36, sorry. When I said to Moses as follows, speak to the Israelite people and instruct them to make for themselves fringes at the corners of their garment throughout the edges. Let them attach a cord of blue, that's your talit, right? Fringe at the corner, etc., etc. That shall be your fringe. Look at it and recall the commandments and observe them. Remember them all the time, so that you do not follow your heart and eyes in your lustful urge. The problem is impulsiveness. The entire argument is about saying it was so nice, it was so wonderful that I couldn't hold back. I couldn't stop for 1 second to be mindful. It's not about noticing something beautiful. It's about not being mindful of how to do that. You cannot, when you recognize something that is beautiful, forget your values. Don't you see the connection with many of the problems that we have in our society? You cannot say, I had an urge, so what? So for that, you can leave your Torah? So the rabbis say, in a way more structural way, if you forget your Torah for even 1 second, you are like giving up on your soul. Now, this is almost a dissonance to the idea that God is everywhere. They're almost in contradiction. And I think that the real challenge that is posed to us is to live with both, with the ability to recognize something that is stunning, absolutely beautiful, and at the same time, to find God and to find that that creature or that thing that we are seeing is transcendental, and what we are doing is transcendental as well, and to have a values structure in order to moderate our behavior. So when we find ourselves sham, we can define what the sham looks like and what's the here in which we want to be. For that, we need a structure. So God is everywhere. Yes, you want to say something else? I was about to close. Yes, go, Beth. Fair. So that's exactly what we are talking about. The exile is the exile of the soul. It's you know, concerning where your soul is supposed to be. That's exactly what we are talking about. But cannot be found by someone else. It's in self-regulation. And with that idea of navigating the here and the there, with that idea of giving space to all the emotions that we have and recognizing that they are part of the divine, but also recognizing that our emotions also need some kind of a structure and filter. And for that, we have Torah and we have mitzvot, so we can live in a society and we can be closer internally to where we want to be. We will commence and do very quickly the reading of Parashat Be'et Hanan. Shabbat Shalom.
Our Torah reading is this morning from chapter 6, beginning with verse 1. If you are
Diane, that's why we don't do Haftarah.
So if you are following, if you have the newer Humashim, which is what we've been using actually in this room this morning, that is on page 1201. For those of you online, if you have any Humash, we are in Deuteronomy Chapter 6, verses 1. Ya'amod Reuven ben Zeverut Harishon.
Baruch Adonai Hamavarach.
Baruch Adonai Hamarach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamavarach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Amen. Vezot hamitzvah, hachukim v'hamishpatim, asher tziva, Adonai Elohechem lilamed etchem, la'asot ba'aretz, asher atem, ovrim shama l'rishta, lema'an tira, et Adonai Elohecha, לשמור את כל חוקותיו ומצוותיו אשר אנוכי מצווך אתה ובנך ובן בנך כל ימי חייך ולמען יאריכון ימיך ושמעת ישראל ושמרת לעשות אשר ייטב לך, ואשר תרבון מאוד, כאשר דיבר אדוני אלוהי אבותיך לך, ארץ זבת חלב ודבש.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. To this side. Ya'amtu Libron ben Abraham v'Sarah v'Zahava bat Miriam Hasheni.
Baruch et Adonai Hambarak.
Baruch Adonai Hambarak le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarak le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Amen. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol lebavcha ubechol nafshecha ubechol meodecha. Ve'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'beitecha ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. That Aliyah was easy.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Ta'amor Rachel Leah bat Aharon u'Devorah hashlishi.
Baruch Adonai Hambarak.
Baruch Adonai Hambarak le'olam
va'ed. Baruch Adonai Hambarak le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Amen. V'haya yeviacha Adonai Elohecha el haaretz asher nishba la'avotecha le'Avraham Yitzchak u'Yaakov latet lach Arim gidolot v'tovot asher lo banitam uvatim meleim kol tuv asher lo melata uvarot chatzuvim asher lo chatzavta kiramim v'zeitim asher lo natata ve'achalta v'savata
הישמר לך, כן תשכח את אדוני, אשר הוציאך מארץ מצרים מבית עבדים.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
תעמוד נחמה יהודית בת יוסף ורבקה הרביעי. Okay, we are right here.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach.
Baruch Adonai Hamorach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'cha banu mikol hamim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. There we go. Thank you.
Amen. Et Adonai Elohecha tira ve'oto ta'avod, ubishmo tishaveh. Lo telchun acharei Elohim acherim, melohei ha'amim asher sevivotechem. Elkana Adonai Elohecha b'kirbecha, pen yecherech. Af Adonai Elohecha becha, והשמידך מעל פני האדמה.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
יישר כוח.
Those that came up to the Torah. You want to be here with Shel, take the microphone so you can hear us. וזה משברך אבותינו ואימותינו, אברהם יצחק ויעקב, שרה רבקה רחל ולאה, הוא יברך את כל העולים והעולות לתורה. May the one who bless our ancestors will bless that came up to the Torah in honor of God, Shabbat, our congregation, the Torah, all the things that you have honored by standing up here. May all of you merit from the Holy One blessing of protection, rescue from any trouble or distress, and from any illness, minor or serious, together with all Israel. And let us say,
Amen.
we also take a moment to acknowledge those that are dealing with illness. We think of those dealing with illness in their souls, in their bodies. We think of those dealing with addictions. And so we pray for those carrying grief. We say, משברך אבותינו ואימותינו, אברהם יצחק ויעקב, שרה רבקה רחל ולאה, הוא יברך את החולים. May the one who bless our ancestors will bless those who are ill. And if you have a name that you'd like to share in this morning of Shabbat,
Richard Kennemer, Jack Long, John Gringorton, Bruce Roberts, Stuart Mass, Mira Engel, Maggie Scardigli, Alfredo Massman, Lori Shaken, Jill Becker, Jenny Shane, Gail Franco, Zach Garner, a former child from our preschool, Richard Ravitch, former member of Shir Hadash, Lauren Janovich, cousin of Joyce Bodick, Kay Dameron, friend of Shel Rubenstein, Hessel Bat Anna Sarah, Brent Abelson, nephew of Carol Zabridger, and Jonathan Stern, son of community member El Stern.
May the blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send to all of them a complete renewal of body and spirit, and let us say, Amen. We'll now invite you to please rise for Agva and Lila.
Besot HaTorah asher sam Moshe livnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai v'yad Moshe. Besot HaTorah asher sam Moshe livnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai v'yad Moshe.
Lila, מחסיקים בה ותומכי המאושר. It is a tree of life for those who hold fast to it. It's a source of joy. Shivenu Adonai elecha v'neshuva. Return us to you, Adonai, and we will return. Renew our days as of in days of old. Hadash Yamenu, Keren, on page 586, Aleinu Leshabeach. 88, right? No, Aleinu Leshabeach from Borgusin.
Oh, that would be 587.
587. You may be seated. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge mourners among our community. If you are during the first 7 days of mourning, please rise. If you are during the first 30 days of mourning, Shloshim, please rise. If you are during the cycle of the first year of mourning, please rise. Share with us the name of your beloved one and remain standing. If you are during, if you have a yahrzeit this week, you are remembering someone's passing by this time of the year in years past, please rise. Our congregation of the members today.
We offer our condolences to Ziba Forazan, cousin of Lindsay Kiner and Silma Hildy, Rosella Newton, Linda Sherry, Fred DeCastro, Sherry Skihan, Larry Eisen, Harry Gross, Michael Tubb, David Schwartz, Rhoda Fryman, Eliad Foner Lipsitz, Ron Walk, Tamara Noten, James C. Price, Colette Kaplowitz, Rita Smith, David Corman, Jay Guadalupe Chavez, Newt Westergren, and Elizabeth Ludwig, and those who died at this season in years past: Selma Engelhart, Jerry Salzman, Helene Sonnenschein, Maurice Alberts, Hilda Lucille Pelsner, Fredel Fisher, Jean Isley Long, and Abraham Sandelman. The Mourner's Kaddish is found on page 598. If it is your custom, please feel free to rise. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Ve'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei t'chol Beit Yisrael Bagala Vizman Kari Vimru.
Amen.
Yehi
Shemei
Shmei
Rabba
Rabba
mevorach
Mevorach
leolam
Leolam
ulmei
Ulamei
almaya
Almaya.
yitbarach.
Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei kudusha
Brichu.
brichu le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen.
Amen.
Yehi shlama rabba min shamaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru
Amen.
amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen.
For the memories of your dear ones, be always a blessing. Yes, Ichram Baruch. You may be seated.
Quick announcement. Okay. So, the gala is this evening. I'm only going to say that the auction is open until 3 o'clock. Okay, so if you haven't had a chance to look into the fabulous things that are there, please take a look. We will ignore you didn't hear that on Shabbat, of course. Next Friday evening is August 19th. At 6:15 will be our back to school Shabbat service. Register online for the preceding family-friendly pasta dinner, which will be at 5:30 p.m. and then stay for the Oneg afterwards for a back-to-school goodie bag. And then on Sunday, August 28th, we have our first of Elul barbecue. Celebrate the end of summer as we come together for a family-friendly barbecue. There'll be lots of lawn activities, some social justice activities as well. We invite you, though, to please register on our website so that we will have enough food for everyone. This event is free. And our closing song will be...
Let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation. So how's the Ladino en Keloheinu? Do you know that one? Okay, so let's do that.
The En Keloheinu
De Ladino.
como nuestro Dios.
It's on page 631. We're gonna modulate that.
Of course we are.
En Keloheinu, en Kadoneinu, en Kemalkeinu, en Kemoshienu. No como nuestro Dios, no es como nuestro Señor, no como nuestro Rey, no como nuestro Salvador. Mi Keloheinu, mi Kadoneinu,
Mi Kemalkeinu, mi Kemoshienu,
no como nuestro Dios, no como nuestro Señor, no como nuestro Rey, no como nuestro Salvador.
No del Eloheinu, no del Adonenu, no del Kemokeinu, no del Moshienu.
Como nuestro Dios,
Remos nuestro Midro, Remos nuestro Rey, Remos nuestro Salvador. Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu. Bendito nuestro Dios, bendito nuestro Señor, bendito nuestro Rey, bendito nuestro Salvador. Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu. Tú sos nuestro Dios, tú sos nuestro Señor, tú sos nuestro Rey, tú sos nuestro Salvador.
Adonai os le'amo iten, Adonai yevarech et amav b'shalom. May God bless its people. Not its people, but its peoples with peace. Shabbat shalom everyone, Shabbat shalom mevorach. Yalla la 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 la, yalla la 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 la, yalla la 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 la, yalla la 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 la.
La 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 la, la 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 la, la la la
again.
We have mixed two different Enkelohinos
We
here.
did. We definitely did.
Confusion.